Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. And it wasn't the best start to the new year for Chelsea with a disappointing 1-1 draw against Nottingham Forest. But it doesn't get any easier for the Blues, unfortunately. We've got Manchester City and Erling Haaland in town on Thursday night for the first of 2 games against City in the space of 3 days before we make the trip to Manchester for the FA Cup third round tie. Obviously, the Blues finding themselves in 10th place in the table before this game kicks off. Obviously, we've got games in hand on the teams above us, but we really do start needing to pick up points, and we can, put whatever quote unquote excuses out there and whatnot, and we understand the situation that we're in. But the reality of the situation is, yes, we understand the circumstances, but we have to pick up points and we have to start playing better, because we could easily find ourselves sliding into the bottom half of the table. So things have got to improve on that front. This game's going to be tricky. There's loads to get stuck into. Enzo Fernandez, Mudryk, the right-back situation, just Graham Potter in general, Chelsea's situation in general. So we're not going to waste any time. By the way, guys, smash the likes on the stream, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, get involved in the chat, and let's have it. Mate, let's start with it first. Before we get into transfers, just wanted to get your thoughts on the Forest performance on Sunday briefly, and just kind of Chelsea at the moment in general. I was at the game. I've given my thoughts on it. What were your thoughts on it as a whole? I mean, the worst thing for me was it wasn't even a surprise.
Yeah, well, I watched the video back on Chelsea Fan TV, and again, I think everything you say. I think it's hard for anyone to argue or disagree with what you said in terms of the middleman and the almost like a Chelsea spokesman. But I do get very emotional and reactive to things that happen in an instant. I think you're better at perhaps digesting it and looking at it from an objective point of view. But for me, mate, just absolute toss, wasn't it?
I mean, it was terrible. It was awful.
And I know you didn't sugarcoat it either. And I know you're going to protect Potter, but the thing is, and I listen to TalkSport as well, because I like getting involved in that. And I know they love the clip vibe, and they put statements out there. But some really valid callers who are Chelsea fans, and they're just. If we could see a process and we could see, a philosophy of football or an identity that's perhaps coming into play, I could forgive the results, because I think, similarly to what City were trying to do in their first season under Pep, they weren't doing particularly well, didn't win the league when they probably should have done with all the money
they were starting at a much higher point than we are.
True, but but that's not sugarcoat. We've spent a hell of a lot of money.
No, we have.
And I know that's not Potter spending it, but that second half, it was worse than Thomas Tuchel performances. It was absolutely diabolical.
It was on no
urgency. Yeah, and I just obviously, I'm not surprised, as you said at the top of the show. But where are we? I mean, what? It's unacceptable at any level, regardless of what you think about Potter, what you think about time. It's inexcusable for a club the size of Chelsea to be in the position that we're in at the moment, and the money that we've spent, regardless of what you think about. There's no given right for football clubs. I'm sorry, that is not good enough.
No, it's not good enough, and I think that's the first thing to accept, is that's unacceptable. It's not good enough. And people go on, "Oh, this is Chelsea," but the way I see it is, the reason we're where we're at right now is because the reality of the situation is, this is how good we are right now. It's as simple as that. Mate, the table doesn't lie. We are where we are because we aren't very good at the moment. That's the simple reality. This is what we're this is the group of players we've got to work with. And we've seen it under other managers. Under Tuchel, we were poor in the league as well. Potter's been here 15, 16 games, not even that in the league. It's a very small sample size to work off. Yes, can he do things better tactically? For sure. Can he make better substitutions? Yes, of course. Can he perhaps make better comments in press conferences or after games? Yes, of course. But ultimately, until he's given the time to bring his own players in, and until he's allowed like a window and to move on the players that he doesn't want, then I think it's hard to make judgments. You can make judgments on what you've seen so far, absolutely. But to suggest for me that this is solely on the manager is kind of missing the point completely, these players for a number of years now haven't been good enough, and the winning has been papering over the facts that this squad is so deficient and actually the quality is quite poor. I mean, I've been suckered into it. I'm sure you have as well. You may disagree with me, and yes, I understand that these players have won before, and these players are Champions League winners, and there's league winners in here, and there's winners all over the place. But ultimately, as a collective, we just aren't there. There's massive areas of the squad that need improvement, midfield, and I just think right now is all the short-termisms and all the short-term decisions are all coming home to bite us in the arse at once. And this is not just one thing. This is a collection of things from over the years that have now all added up and seem to just be landing on us in one go. All those short-term decisions, like decision, for example, I even go back to last summer, offering Azpilicueta a new 2-year contract. Yes, we love Aspi, and he's a legend at the club. But we have to move on. We have to make ruthless decisions. Offering Azpilicueta a new 2-year contract in the summer meant we didn't go and buy a right back. And now look at the situation. You have to be ruthless. There's no room for sentimentality in football. That's just an example of one decision. The decision to sign Aubameyang, ridiculous. The decision like from Thomas Tuchel to say we don't need a midfield player, and then we scramble and bring in Zakaria on deadline day. These are all poor decisions that are all amalgamating to us being in the position that we're in now. Should we be playing better with this group of players? Arguably, yes, we should because of the individual quality. But as a collective, this is how good we are as a team right now. And it's hard for us to accept as fans because the majority of us fans have only grown up watching Chelsea win. And when we don't see Chelsea win, the default reaction is to kind of lose our heads a little bit. Like everyone looks for someone to blame. It always has to be one person's fault. It's either the manager's fault or it has to be a certain player's fault why we lost. The reason why we're losing football matches is because as a collective, everyone is not good enough and is not performing to the level they should be performing at.
Yeah, and I mean, all of those things are true, but you have to counteract it with, I think, a lot of the decisions are quite alarming from the board. I mean, you're talking about, signings that have come in, even under Potter, under Tuchel, since Abramovich has left. Now people are starting to unpick those signings that we brought in. Koulibaly, perhaps, 5 years too late.
He's only 31. Perhaps. I mean, yes, we would have ideally liked to have got him earlier, but I think I'll hold fire on players that came in the summer because I've only been here for 6 months. But I get your point. I get your point though. That actually look at it now, and on reflection, and I know hindsight's easy, but you look at the business now, 6 months on, and you think, it wasn't actually that great. All we did was replace what we lost. Fofana and Koulibaly replaced Rudiger and Christensen, and both of those players, through their fault, others not, have not actually been any better than Rudiger and Christensen were. Aubameyang has come in for Lukaku. He's been no better. And Sterling has kind of replaced Werner. And let's be honest, he's barely been any better than Timo was. So actually, we're just in the same situation as we were before, but with different players.
And doesn't it alarm you more that a world-class tactician in Thomas Tuchel basically got the boot because he disagreed with a lot of the principles that the new owners were coming in with? And I know they've totally got the right to go down a different route in a different direction. Maybe they always thought that Tuchel was never going to be the man for them. But I have to question when a board gets rid of someone as experienced and as good as Thomas Tuchel, regardless of the position we were in at that point, to replace him with someone who just isn't a winner, mate. Like, some people are just born winners and some people aren't, and that's no disrespect to Potter. And obviously he needs the chance to be able to prove in his managerial career that he can do that. Of course he can. He's never going to win a major trophy at Brighton, no matter how good he is. I get that, but it's just, I think players look around that dressing room and probably question, he probably doesn't know. So then how can he transfer that onto the players? Tuchel managed to emulate, get the best out of that group. Yes, it had its sell-by date, but there's a level of acceptance. If we were 5th, 6th, you can get along with that, but Chelsea cannot be this far away from top 4 with any manager in place. It's just not acceptable. From the amount of money we've spent, it's an essential for me to get top 4. We could say, if we get out of Europe altogether, it could be a saving grace because, we obviously did it under Conte where we had no football, we won the league. but let's be realistic. If we drop out of Europe completely next season, we're not winning the league next year.
No, we're not winning the league next year.
So then where are we? I don't see the vision. I know it's very short termism. I get that. It's
but
hard.
What I would say to counter that point is that the sort of the conversations that fans are having now around Graham Potter are the same grumblings that Arsenal fans had around Mikel Arteta. We follow football. We're not Arsenal fans by any stretch of the imagination, but we know that the noise around Arteta. So many Arsenal fans wanted him out. Hated what he was doing, didn't think he was up to it, didn't think he was good enough. 2 years later, 3 years into the quote unquote project, now look what they're doing. And people were like, oh, Potter's soft compared to Arteta. Let's kind of rewind it. Arteta, to begin with, signed Willian. He signed David Luiz. He gave Aubameyang a new contract. He gave Lacazette a new contract. He did all these things before actually regularly playing Martinelli, Saka, and whatnot. And so, I think there's got to be, no one's saying that this is acceptable, what's going on, but there has to be a realization that what's going on here is because we aren't good enough right now. And until players are moved on, until players are brought in, I think it's really hard to make a judgment call. I just don't think you can, because what essentially people are saying is that after 3 months, people have decided that the manager's not good enough. And I don't understand how people can come to that conclusion in such a small space of time. By all means, this time next season, if things haven't improved, then there's very much grounds for a conversation. But it takes time to build a football team, and patience is key. But patience is the one thing that no football fans really have, particularly Chelsea fans, because we're so used to winning. And the default reaction has always been to press the eject button on the manager, and that doesn't work in the long term. We've seen it. That approach never works really. The winning just covered over the deficiencies in that approach. We thought it was great because we won a few trophies here and there along the way. But we're like, if you actually sit back and look at it, the reality is you're not going to win anything by fucking changing the manager every year to 18 months. You're never going to build anything at all. And I get the point about Tuchel. I agree that if the owners would have known that they weren't 100% sure on him before we went into the season. If you're going to get rid of the manager and bring someone like Graham Potter in as a longer term manager to build something, you should have given him the summer to do that. You should have allowed him to have the preseason. You should have allowed him to move on players you didn't want and bring in players that he wanted. So that's not Potter's fault. It's not Potter's fault that he's been parachuted into a mess. It's not his fault that the fixture list has been crammed. We had the World Cup. There's been hardly any time to work on things on the training ground. These aren't excuses. These are just facts. And there's a lot of things that should have been done differently at Chelsea. I think this new ownership is trying to do things that weren't done under the previous ownership. There seems to be an actual plan in the transfer market now in terms of what we want, how we're identifying it. That's sort of the types of players we're going for. We're not just going for big names like we always did in the past. We're actually going for players that have got age on their side. You've got players that have got high ceilings, a lot of potential to grow into. So you can see that there is the basis of a plan here. The structure's in place. And now we have to allow that structure to do its work. But I also fully appreciate that that results shouldn't come at the expense of that. Yes, we're all aware we're going to lose football matches and there's going to be tough days. But what's not acceptable, and I fully agree, is to find ourselves in 10th place in the table, because that isn't acceptable. But I think you've also got to put a little bit of context alongside it as well. The fact is,
but I strip it down. I just think, call me biased, call me naive, but the team that we have playing out there should be beating Forest. I mean, there's absolutely it doesn't matter who's in charge. I mean, they could be managerless and go out there and should be winning it. So there's a level of I'm unsure at the moment. There might be a level of complacency because the players might be going through the motions because they're unsure of what the long-term plan is. The manager might be going through the motions because he knows he's got time. So therefore, is there really that emphasis like we had under Roman Abramovich, where he knew if he was, this bad, he would have been gone by now already? Maybe because he's been allowed that time, there's an element of complacency creeping in where he knows he's almost got a free hit this season. So it's not Not saying he doesn't want to win games, of course he does, but before it was like, yes, we've got to finish top four, or we've got to win this cup, or we've got to do this. Now I feel like Chelsea are just kind of game by game, see how it goes and see where we end up, which is not what we're used
But
to at all.
no, it's not. But I think that's where we are right now. And the reason why I think people are up in arms about it to an extent is because we're not used to it, and it's something new, and people don't like different things.
Change, no, don't like change.
We've been used to winning for years and years and years, and the moment we're not winning, like it's automatically it's wrong. It's the manager's fault. It always has to be someone to blame for the situation, and there isn't really one person to blame for what's going on right now. It's a collective of things that have been done wrong over the years, and now that it's all coming home to bite us in the arse. But yeah, finding ourselves 10th in the table before tomorrow's game is not good at all. We're dropping more points away from the top four. Liverpool lost, Spurs lost, Newcastle drew. There was a chance to gain points in that slim chance for the top four, and you've got to take those chances when you can. It is as simple as that, and it is difficult right now at Chelsea. It's bleak. You can't really see where the next win's coming from. You can't see where a decent performance is coming from, but you've got to stick with it through the dark times in order to enjoy the good times. You can't just down tools and then like celebrate and be a fan again when things are when things are going well again. It's part of the journey, and we're on this together. We've had so many years of success. Whilst we don't want any years of failure. Do you know what? We are due, just by law of averages and just by cycles, we're due some bad luck. Not bad luck. We're due some bad form and some years without trophies. You can't keep winning all the time. Things are cyclical. They come to an end. Look at Liverpool now. I mean, people are saying that Chelsea are having a dreadful season. We are. We're not that far. We're only a couple of points behind Liverpool. So, and people don't say too much about them. But let's move away from Chelsea. Let's move on to transfers briefly, mate. The deal for Enzo Fernandez. Will he, won't he sign? It's been rumbling on for what feels like an eternity. But there was some slightly less positive news. Deal's not off by any means, but there's still no agreement between Chelsea and Benfica for Enzo Fernandez. Talks are not solely on a payment structure, but the overall package. Yesterday, Benfica conceded on a multi-payment structure, but only if Chelsea made a lump sum first payment covering a large part of the fee. Today, Benfica have outright rejected Chelsea's original proposal and told them if they want a deal done quickly to trigger the release clause. This can be seen as either a genuine decision not to sell unless forced to, or a tactic to get more money up front as part of the original offer. Either way, the parties are no closer to a deal than they were on Monday. Nothing is verbally agreed yet or signed, and sources indicate CFC have never wanted to trigger Fernandez's release clause. Chelsea must now decide whether to make a counter offer on terms, go against their position and trigger the release clause, or walk away. Talks have not ceased. They remain in advance, but Benfica, who have a divided board on this, are yet to fully approve any deal Chelsea have offered. I won't go into the rest of it. But, mate, obviously a deal of this caliber with this amount of money takes a lot of time to get done. Are you concerned by this potential hold-up? We know clubs can move goalposts at the last minute, and we've seen it when we tried to negotiate with Koundé with Sevilla. Monchi, the director there, kind of shifted the goalpost. This could be Benfica doing that. They could be playing hardball to get slightly more money up front. Are you concerned by this potential hold-up, or you just look at it as part and parcel of a deal with this much money?
Yeah, it's just part of the game, isn't it? They know we're in a precarious position where we're desperate for some sort of creativity and desperate for some sort of signing in the window, and they hold all the cards, don't they? They want us to trigger the release clause and a hefty lump fee up front, which Chelsea, by the sounds of it, are not prepared to pay because they're obviously going to increase that in January specifically. I think Chelsea stay away from this. I think there's a lot of hype over him. The last thing we want to do as a club is again overspend on what's known as questionable potential. We don't know how good this player is going to be, and I think if we're comfortable, like the owners seem to be, of just finish where we finished this season and take it as a free hit, then we need to evaluate in the summer and really recruit sensibly. I think this scattergun approach of just going for the headline on topic form names from the World Cup is just a big no for me. I mean, Ziyech had a great World Cup and he's absolutely toss. So for me, I think we stay way clear of this. That's my personal opinion. I like him. I think he's talented, but I don't think he's worth the money. No.
the reason the money is because no one's saying he's worth that money. It's the release clause in the contract. So if you want him, you have to pay
Yeah.
it.
Well, we're not. I don't think.
Look, one of the things for certain is Chelsea will not pay the release clause in one. Like they will not pay the release clause because a release clause requires you to pay the whole amount of money up front, and that's not great for the FFP. The reason why we're offering more than the release clause is to structure the payments more in our favour, so that we can spread it out and it looks better for cash flow, it looks better for FFP and the business. So whilst people might think, well, I'm offering more than a release clause. Well, that's the reason why. So the payment terms can be structured more in our favour. I don't think that we're in a particularly strong negotiating position in terms of leverage here. Benfica have got the player. He only joined 6 months ago. The release clause is in the contract. Yes, he wants the Chelsea move. Yes, he wants to come to us. Personal terms have been agreed last week. Not a problem. But ultimately, Benfica can sit back and say, if you want this player, you pay the release clause. And it's as simple as that. So I think we're at a bit of an impasse at the moment, but I'm pretty sure this will get done. It's just it was going to drag on a little bit longer than we want to. But I mean, mate, you're not like I understand the slight judgments here in terms of the slight reservations. Yes, he's only played 25 games for Benfica. Yes, but at 21 years of age, he's won the Copa America and he's won the World Cup, playing a big part in both. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to sit here and say that I watch the Portuguese league every week, because I don't. I've watched more of Benfica in the Champions League. He's looked very good there. The lack of top flight experience, I understand that. I also understand that big money signings at Chelsea haven't worked out at all, any of them. But I would feel slightly different on this one based on the fact that he's got age on his side. There's a lot of potential there, and he has kind of shown he can do it at the top level in terms of World Cup, in terms of Copa America and whatnot. I'd be more inclined to think that this would probably work more. This has got more chance of working than not, but of course, there's always a chance that it might not work. But I mean, mate, in terms of if he does eventually come in, which I still think he will, how important is it that as a fan base, we don't put a load of pressure on a 21-year-old kid who's just come into the league and expect him to transform our fortunes? Because it's going to take more than one midfield player to change our fortunes there.
Yeah, it's a difficult time to join Chelsea, which will also test his character if he was to sign for Chelsea, because we will expect a big impact and for him to completely change, the whole feel and even the results of the club, which is an unrealistic goal to set an individual. But I think Chelsea fans on the whole are one of the clubs who actually back a lot of players to the nth degree. You look at players like Torres and, particularly the forward players, we do give them a lot of time before we get on their back. We are quite faithful. I mean, you only have to look at Timo Werner and Havertz. We still do get behind them every game. Before Timo Werner departed, we still do. Yes, we get on their case, but we do give them a lot of time. So I don't think we're unfair in that sense. But yeah, it's a harder situation because Chelsea are so desperate for a change in form that if he comes in, he's going to have to be able to deal with that weight on his shoulders. So again, that test of character will be an indication, if he does sign for Chelsea, what type of player we have.
I mean, mate, we're under no illusions that he will make a difference for sure, because the midfield's terrible. It has been for years. It's not been invested in for years and years. But at the same time, there's no guarantees that this works. There's no guarantees that any deal works. And he has to be given time. This kid's 21 years old. To come in for what would be the most expensive Premier League transfer ever, the fourth most expensive transfer of all time in football. That's a lot of pressure. He has to be given time. He's not going to come in suddenly straight away and be playing his best football and transform the Chelsea midfield. So it's important that if he does come in, that we give him the time required to settle in. But I also think that if this goes to the summer, Chelsea don't get him. So that's why we're acting now, because we have to get him, because we've seen a window of opportunity and we don't get him in the summer when other clubs become interested. So we have to move now. But yeah, a slight hold up on the Enzo deal. I still think they'll hopefully work this one out and he will be a Chelsea player, but it's just going to take a little bit longer than necessary. Moving from one player to another, and this is one that seems to have gathered a little bit more momentum in the last couple days or so, and that's Chelsea's pursuit of Mykhailo Mudryk, the 21-year-old Shakhtar Donetsk winger from Ukraine. Obviously, it's clear that he wants to go to Arsenal. Arsenal are tracking the player for quite a while now, but Chelsea seem to be wanting to get muscling on the deal as well. Shakhtar Donetsk director Dario Serna will be in London this week, and he's expected at Stamford Bridge for the Chelsea-Man City game. Chelsea and Shakhtar will discuss Mudryk in the next 24 hours, but Arsenal remain in direct talks and is the player's current priority. Mate, your thoughts on this? I mean, Chelsea prepared to pay more money than Arsenal will. They're prepared to do that. They're probably prepared to offer the player more money. But for me, this almost seems like a Rafinha 2.0 situation, that we're trying to get in on the player that doesn't really want to join us as a priority. And we're just kind of testing the waters and kind of getting things in place in case the Arsenal deal falls through for whatever reason. I mean, I'm not expecting you to know much about Mudryk. I don't know an awful lot about him. I've seen him in the Champions League for Shakhtar. He looks decent. He's an exciting winger. We do need new wingers. Do you see this as a Rafinha 2.0 situation because of the circumstances?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really comment on the player himself, but again, this is where it seems quite alarming for me that Chelsea, yes, we almost are in a panic situation in this window because we need replacements regardless of. It's almost like we don't care who they are at this stage. We're just trying to put the feelers out and look around to see what's available right now, regardless of what they are and their experience, which worries me slightly if we're talking about long term. But we're in a desperate situation. Obviously, if Arteta's looked at him, there must be some substance because I believe in his good judge of character. But if you've got to strip it down to basics. If he doesn't want to, if it's not on his priority, then just move on. You've got to want to sign for the club. If you're talking about your second and third choices, oh yeah, I'll sign for them if an offer doesn't come in for my favourite club, then that's not the person you want, really, is it?
I don't expect Chelsea to get him by any means. It could just be Shakhtar maybe meeting with Chelsea in an attempt to force Arsenal's hand and get them to offer a bit more money up front. But the fact that we're having a meeting and Serna is going to be at the ground potentially tomorrow, that strikes me with a little bit more confidence, for want of a better word, that there actually could be a bit of legs in this. I mean, do you think we need a new winger?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
But again, I think we need to assess it again in the summer when we've got more time, because I believe we can bring in better quality than what's been suggested in January. It's very limited what's available in January also. So definitely need a new winger, 100%. There's no service for the forward line that we've got at the moment. We'll improve that anyway, but yeah, 100% we need new wingers. More than one.
Well, more than one. Yeah, I mean, we got to accept we're not going to be able to do all this in January. And players are going to have to leave as well. It's not there's not a bottomless pit of money. But and it'll be interesting to see what happens with this one, what comes of the meeting potentially tomorrow with Dario Serna and Todd Boehly and co. But it would be sweet to snipe this one from under Arsenal's noses. I can't lie about that. Let's move away from that. Last thing on transfers, mate, before we move into the City game. Obviously, when you need to go, mate, just let me know. In terms of a right back, are you worried by the fact that obviously we're going for a midfield player and we're potentially going for a winger? Great, no issue with this at all. But are you worried that it's coming at the expense of actually looking for a right back, which is an absolute necessity? I mean, there doesn't really seem to be any links with any right backs at the moment, which is quite concerning.
Yeah, but again, you've got to look at the availability of players out there. Contradicts itself if you're going to give Aspie a new deal and then not play him when he's second string and James is injured. So you do have to think about personalities in the dressing room and what message that sends. Yes, the drop in class from James to Aspie is ridiculous, particularly at this stage of his career. So we are a bit desperate. We, like you said in numerous on the Chelsea fan chat before, that you just know when he plays, we just, it's almost like a weakness. That any average Premier League winger can cause problems there, and we're at a disadvantage in games with him playing. But again, we can only solve one problem at a time, and I think midfield is a bigger problem for me than a right back as of now. I still think we can shuffle that back. This is why I think Potter should just play a different system when James is injured and try and figure out a way to do that. But yeah, we've got problems all over the pitch, not just right back.
Yeah, no, we do have problems. I mean, yeah, look, I fully understand. Look, we need a right back for sure, but I don't want us just to sign a right back for the sake of signing a right back. If the right player's not available now, I'd rather we wait till the summer. As painful as it's going to be, like not having another right back, I'd rather wait till the summer to get the right player rather than just sign a right back in January just for the sake of it. If a right back can be signed in January, fantastic. Let's do it. But if they can't, then I'd rather we wait till the summer, because I don't want us to keep going down the route of signing players that aren't actually good enough or we don't actually want. I'd rather us take our time with it and do it right, so we don't kind of stay in this mess. But I think that's pretty much most of the transfer stuff. Mate, let's move into the game a little bit. City. This is going to be really tough. Erling Haaland's coming to town. 21 Premier League goals, more than we've scored all season as a team. How are we going to stop him? What do you think we need to do to have any chance of actually getting anything out of this game?
I don't think Haaland's. I think he'll find it tougher at Stamford just because of the pitch. It's a bit tighter. He won't get as much space in the middle. He's a bit of a poacher. But that's where it ends for me. I think, yes, City are on a bit of a different, up and down form. They had that kind of shocking result against Brentford just before we went on World Cup duty. Struggled to, beat an Everton, so they got absolutely battered last night. So that was a huge mistake. I think they've almost, not that they've given up on the league, but I think they've got one eye on the big one this year. They want to do the Champions League. And I know I say that every year, but I really do believe that this year they might just do it and realise that perhaps they're not going to catch Arsenal. They've still got a chance, of course they have.
Yeah.
But
they win tomorrow night. It's back to 5 points again.
And I think they will win tomorrow night, mate. I think they're just too good. Unfortunately, I think it's very dependent on De Bruyne, who I've got no doubts will again unpick the lock at Chelsea. I just think we're just so unstable at the moment. It's going to be how Chelsea fans react. We're not expecting to win, but we're expecting some sort of a performance and just a bit of bite. We're a team that are very renowned for being up for the big games. Particularly at Stamford Bridge, we can get ourselves going. We can create those shock results, and we've done that even when City have been at their best. We have beaten them, and no one gave us a hope in hell in that Champions League final. So we can do it. Different circumstances, but how do we stop them? God knows, mate. Because we can't score, we concede goals, and I just think they're just too good. I think they're going to need a whole lot of luck. We're going to have to be very, very clinical on the counter attack, which we're not. I don't know, mate. I can't see anything other than a City win tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I can't either. I don't think, and this is the reality of the situation. It's not being negative. It's just an acceptance that actually, I don't go into any Chelsea game expecting to get anything. I honestly can't see where the wins are coming from. And I can't see how the performance improves that much. Would you agree that to go with a 4-3-3? I mean, I had potential thoughts that maybe we could go for a back five for a bit more defensive solidity. I would do that if we had Reece James available. Azpilicueta at right wing back is worse than him at right back in a flat four. So I think for those reasons alone, I probably would stick with a 4. But I mean, would you be tempted at all to go with the 3? Do you think the 3's crossed his mind?
Perhaps, yeah, because I think, again, I'm sure he expects to get something out of the game because as a manager at Chelsea,
you always do, yeah.
You would, but I think this is a good opportunity to at least trial something, change it up, maybe throw a curveball that Pep's not expecting. But I can't see us not playing anything other than the 4. I just don't think we've got the capabilities without James to do that. You could perhaps play Chalobah. You could bring one of the wingers back into that right back role.
I think that's the only other option is to play Chalobah at right back. But again, how often that hasn't happened that often? Yes, he'd have a bit more pace. Yes, he'd be a bit more dynamic and a bit more mobile. But I still think that's a bit of an ask as well to stick Chalobah at right back.
Yeah, it is.
It is. I mean, hugely. Just very briefly before we go into the team, what game do you view as? I know it's quite a tricky question. What do you view as more important, this game tomorrow or the one on Sunday against City in the Cup?
That's a really tough one.
It's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, I know it's hard to put more. It's hard to put.
I'd probably say the league, just because I think we're still in reach of 4th.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the cup as a bonus, really, isn't it? And the league the cup would be a bonus. But then I suppose you could also argue that, if we win in the cup, it's a big boost. You knock out City, and a cup run could be something that kind of distracts us from the league a little bit, I guess. I don't really know. I mean, we've lost the last 3 FA Cup finals. I don't really fancy losing 4 in a row. But I mean, yeah, I would probably inch towards the league at this stage. Obviously, if the cup was like a semi-final or a quarter-final or something, different conversation. But the fact it's third round, look, it's still important. But I'd probably place more emphasis on this. Guys, by the way, make sure you smash the likes on the stream, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already.
I'm off now, mate. But
right,
go on for the team. But
I'll go on for the team, mate. Score prediction:
2-0
City. Fair. Mate, thanks for your time as always. Yeah, catch you soon, bro. Nice one. Guys, I'm going to carry on with the team. So make sure you get involved in the chat with your thoughts on the team. Obviously, Kepa is going to be in goal. Even if Mendy was fit, he's no chances he going between the sticks. So Kepa in goal. I think that's for sure. Obviously, Thiago Silva is definitely going to be one of those. Not that side. It's going to be one of those centre-backs for sure. Now, this is where there's a bit of a decision to make. I'd also go with Cucurella at left back. I thought he was one of the better players against Forest for sure. Now, obviously, do we stick with Koulibaly? Does Chalobah come into the lineup? This is a situation. I mean, look, I personally wouldn't play Chalobah at right back. I would bring him in to play alongside Thiago Silva because I just think Koulibaly had such a bad game against Forest. He's not been at his best. And Chalobah should never really have been dropped from the team in the first place. He was playing really, really well. I mean, there was no reason why he should have been taken out of the side. Koulibaly's been shaky, as I said, got absolutely battered in that second half at Forest. So for me, I would bring in Chalobah alongside Thiago Silva. And regrettably, no disrespect to him because he is a legend and he's won it all. I'd have to play Azpilicueta at right back because we haven't really got any other options. The only other option that we could do is to put Chalobah there. But again, whilst that offers you a bit more dynamism and a bit more mobility, it doesn't really, I don't know how much more it does offer you in the team. So yeah, for me, Kepa, Silva, Chalobah, Cucurella and Azpilicueta. Midfield, there's decisions to make as well. I mean, I would personally, obviously, Jorginho is gonna be the holding player, as it were. I would play him. I think Kovacic starts in this game, having come off the bench against Forest. So it leaves you a choice in there. It leaves you basically 3 options here. You've got Gallagher, Mount, Chukwuemeka, Lewis Hall, Zakaria. There's a few options there for that last one. I mean, I personally don't think Mason Mount deserves to play. I know full well that Mount will play, but personally for me, I probably wouldn't start him in this game. Gallagher's not going to start for me either. Neither is Chukwuemeka or Lewis Hall, as good as they might be. So for me, I think Mount. Yeah, RD agreed, bro. Mount will definitely start, but for me personally, I wouldn't start him. I would be looking to go elsewhere with this one. I would probably stick with Zakaria just for that physicality that he offers as well, and he's pretty box to box as well. I mean, I would go with Mount, Jorginho, and Zakaria. Again, let me know your thoughts in the chat. It's basically whether it's Mount or Zakaria at this point, because Lewis Hall, Gallagher, and Chukwuemeka aren't going to play. So it's a toss-up between Mount and Dennis Zakaria. I would personally go with Zakaria just because I think he's been better than the Mount. Mount's not been offering much, although we know that Mount is going to start. In terms of the front 3 then, this is tricky because no forward players are playing well. Could you make an argument for bringing Hakim Ziyech back in? Potentially. I mean, the cameo against Forest wasn't the best. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. I mean, they say Sterling should be dropped. Maybe he should have been poor. But what are the other alternatives? Like, there's Pulisic, Sterling, Havertz, Mount, and Ziyech. It's not exactly a lot. There's not exactly a lot to choose from. So it is tough up here. I think one player that's certainly going to play is Raheem Sterling. I think he plays on this right-hand side. He's had a tricky time recently, but against his former team, maybe we'll have something a bit more fire in the belly, something to prove. And people have been calling for continuity in lineups, and I think despite the fact that the front three has not been the best, it has been the same for the last 2 games. Some level of continuity is important, and I think maybe it does deserve one more chance. I thought Sterling was poor against Forest. Yes, he did score, but other than that, there was nothing on offer. I mean, yes, I think Pulisic probably does. I probably would go with Pulisic in this position on the left, because what other choices have you got? You've got Ziyech, and that's it. Or you play Aubameyang off the left, or you play Havertz. Like that it's not great. And then the number 9 options aren't great either. I mean, Havertz and Aubameyang are both bang average, to put it kindly. So what I'm looking for is Aubameyang. If we created chances, then I would 100% be starting Aubameyang. But the fact is, we don't really create any chances. And if we're not creating any chances, Aubameyang is utterly useless. Havertz, whilst useless, still offers just a tiny bit more off the ball. He's more mobile. He gets stuck in a little bit more. So I would probably go with Havertz through the middle. But again, it's kind of toss of a coin. The fact that we don't create enough chances, I just think off the ball, Havertz offers a little bit more. I know it's like we are scraping the barrel here in terms of selections. I mean, I look at that team and I just think there's a reason we're 10th in the table right now, because actually the team we've got isn't good enough. It really is as simple as that. Could we make better tactical choices? Yes. Could we get more out of the players? Quite possibly, but the level's where it's at right now. This is the reality. This is how good we are. And I look at like Sterling and Pulisic, they're our highest chance creators per 90 minutes. So I think they have to play. And Havertz has got the nod over Aubameyang at the moment. So I don't like that front three, but it's the best we've got, unfortunately. And I mean, I look at that team and I just think it's just kind of average. It really is. And you can understand why we are where we are in the table, because apart from a few players, there is a distinct lack of quality in here. And you can see why we still need to, despite spending the money we spent in the summer, all we did was replace what we lost. We haven't actually improved the first 11 or improved the squad. We just replaced what we lost. So there's still a lot more players to come in. There's a lot of players to go out, and there's a lot more money that needs to be spent at this football club. I don't particularly trust the team. I don't think the attitude's poor. I don't think the mentality's right. There's a lot of things that are wrong. Potter's got a lot on his plate, and he's got to find some answers, and he has to find them quickly, because football is a results-based business at the end of the day. And if you're not picking up results, people are always going to talk. So we have to try and do something to start picking some results up. I mean, you just don't know what you're going to get with this Chelsea team. You really don't. Look, I wouldn't equally, we could go and lose 3-0 tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised, but we could also win 1-0. And I equally wouldn't be surprised either. You just don't know what you're going to get from this Chelsea team at the moment. There's no consistency. There's no patterns of play. There's no identity. There's not really any idea of what's going to happen. I mean, yeah, look, I think Rice will come in the summer. That's very much a summer move. West Ham have made it perfectly clear they won't sell in January for obvious reasons. Kakare, I think it's Kakare. I'm right in thinking that he's the midfielder at Lyon. I don't know if he's one that's being looked at or not. I haven't really heard too much about him. Don't know an awful lot on him either. Is he French or is he Brazilian? I think he's probably French. I'm pretty sure he plays for Lyon, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, a Kovacic, Rice, Enzo midfield next season would be much better. That would be a start for sure. But I mean, this is the team that I would go with tomorrow night. Does it fill me with confidence? Absolutely not. Is it the best that we've got available to us? Does it give us the best chance of getting some sort of result? I think probably it does. Although, I mean, I look at it and there's not many other options to go. There's not really many other options to go with here. You look at it and you think, all right, Mount could play in one of those positions. Mount's going to play instead as a carrier. But Mount and Ziyech are the only ones you've got. I mean, Chukwuemeka does deserve more minutes, but he's not going to start this game. Lewis Hall's not going to start this game. I think Hutchinson deserves minutes, but he's not going to start this game. So it really is tricky at the moment. It's really hard. And I do feel a little bit sorry for Potter, because what he's got to work with really isn't that good at all. It's tough. And yeah, it's going to be a real big ask tomorrow whether we can contain Haaland, whether we can contain De Bruyne. I mean, it is a plus that Ruben Diaz is out at the back, but our attack's so toothless anyway. It doesn't really seem to make too much difference. Laporte is also a doubt. So City have got defensive issues, but I mean, going forward, they're just so lethal. I mean, De Bruyne, Haaland, Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, Grealish, Mahrez. There's so many options there that can cause damage. And, I don't think it's going to be long before Erling Haaland puts the ball in the back of the net at Stamford Bridge. But I think the longer we hold out, the more of a chance we've got. What we can't afford to do is get off to a poor start and go a goal down in the first 10 to 15 minutes. Diaz overrated. I don't think he is. I think he's a very good player. He's been phenomenal for Manchester City. Yes, there are kind of flaws there, but there's flaws in every player. I certainly wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind Diaz at Chelsea. That's for sure. Yeah, we could be 11th. That's the reality of the situation that we're in at the moment. Chelsea are a miserable lottery that needs gutting. And so Jorginho is done and will get bullied tomorrow night. The feathers in my pillow. Yeah, look, Jorginho is for what I like Jorginho. I think he's a very good player, but what he is very limited. What he's good at, he's very good at. But unless you put the players around him to support him and to cover him, then he has got a tendency to get bullied in games. Like Italy, he's got Verratti and Barella around him, and that makes a big difference. I do agree he's very easy to get past. He's not great in a transition, but at the moment he's the best we've got. We haven't really got many other options. No, I don't think. No, there's no need to be scared of him. He's a very good defender, but the fact that he's missing and he's one of City's first choice defenders makes that an advantage for us, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we've got to take every small win that we can do. I agree. It's going to be bleak for Azpilicueta. The thought of Mahrez or Grealish or whoever it is taking on Aspi, that is a bleak prospect. Seeing the fact he got run ragged by Forest, God knows what's going to happen to him against Man City, or maybe he could pull something out the bag and roll the years back. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, City, I think for sure, Pep's not stupid. He will definitely be looking to target Azpilicueta in this game. I think the midfield battle is going to be really key. Rodri, Gundogan, De Bruyne. What can Kovacic, Zakaria, and Jorginho do to kind of combat that? Oh, they've got a Kanji as well. The only way we have an advantage in this game is a Kanji plays. Yeah, I actually think Akanji's done really well since coming to see. I think he's taken a lot of people by surprise. I watched him a bit at Dortmund and didn't think he was that great, but City kind of stole a march there, got him in on the cheap deal with his contract expiring. And I have to say, I've been very impressed by how well he's done so far. Problem is, we don't put any balls into the box, and Havertz, when he wants to be, is good in the air, but when Havertz is not really on it that often. So, I mean, yes, Akanji will play tomorrow. Is that going to be an advantage to us? Maybe, but probably not, because we don't have the guile or the creativity or the skill, amongst many other things, to actually make a difference in attack. So it is going to be tricky for us. I don't really know what we can do. I think the best we can do is hope to hit them on the counter-attack, hit them on the break, get lucky from a set piece. We're just going to have to sit tight, make the most of our chances, of the very few chances that we do create, and we're just going to have to require a lot of luck. And it's as simple as that. I don't think any Chelsea fans expect us to get anything from this game. It's been a long time, I think, since we've headed into Chelsea games not expecting to get anything whatsoever and expecting to lose. But that's been the reality of the season so far. Most games I've gone into and expected us to not win. And that's just the way it is at the moment. I think it's the way it's going to be for a while. The fixtures don't get any easier. They really don't. This month's tough. We've got City tomorrow. Then we've got them in a cup on Sunday. Then we've got Fulham away on Thursday, who are doing very well. Then we've got Palace at home. And then we've got Liverpool away. It's quite feasible that we lose the majority of these games. Look, I do like Hakim Ziyech for his delivery, but in a Chelsea shirt, he's been so underwhelming. I do think there's a chance that there's a shout for him to be included tomorrow from the off, but I can't see Potter going with that. As for Hutchinson, he definitely deserves a chance. He's exciting, but I don't think this is the game to chuck him in from the off. But I do feel that he needs to be getting first team minutes sooner rather than later. And if he's not starting, or at the very least getting at least half an hour in the cup on Sunday, I would be very, very disappointed. This game is going to be down to luck for us. Yes, there's always an element of skill involved in football, but to beat a team that's so much better than you and to beat them in the form that we're in, it's going to require a lot of luck for us, or it's going to require City to leave all their footballing ability on the coach down to Stamford Bridge, in all honesty, because other than that, we are banging trouble tomorrow night. And I don't like being negative about Chelsea, but that's the reality of the situation. It really is. But yeah, that's the lineup that I'd go with. as I said, I've not really got much confidence in it because the players have done nothing to fill me with any confidence at all. Yeah, Leao would be nice, although I think there's more chance of Mudryk happening, basically because I think Leao's pretty close to signing a new contract at Milan. And also, like with Enzo and Benfica, Milan insist on the full release clause, which is 150 million euros, and Chelsea just aren't going to pay that. And I don't think Milan are going to sell in January either. Never say never, but I don't think that's going to happen. If we're going to spend big money on one player in January, it's going to be on a midfield player. So Enzo is going to be the main target. It'll be interesting to see what we do if the Enzo deal doesn't happen. But yeah, Leao would be more summer, if at all, unfortunately. Are you at the bridge? I think so. I'm pretty certain I am. But I just need to double check if that is the case. But I should be. If I am, there will be a match vlog, as always, being posted on the channel after the game. But I should be at the game tomorrow night. I just need to double check a couple of things. But yeah, match vlog will be coming after the game if I do indeed get myself to Stamford Bridge. So please do stay peeled for that one. Yeah, not too much else to do, guys. Obviously, if you've got any questions in the chat. Oh, what's this? I've missed this. What's the latest Enzo news? Didn't get a chance to follow everything today. Big up, Athav. Basically, bro, the situation here is that Chelsea and Benfica still don't have an agreement in place. They're looking to sort out the payment structures. There's been a bit of a hold-up. They've been negotiating for a few days now. Personally, I think it's just a bit of a hold-up in the deal. But that's the situation we're at now, that they're no closer to getting a deal agreed than they were on Monday. So still in negotiations, still trying to sort out the structures of the payment deal. Benfica want more money up front in a lump sum than Chelsea perhaps prepared to do at this stage. So it's just a little bit of back and forth at this moment in time. I don't think Chelsea will get top four this season because I don't trust this team. I don't trust the team either. But the fact of the matter is, if we were to win tomorrow night, it would be 5 points off the top four, and 5 points is nothing in football. So yeah, it's gonna be tricky, guys. It is gonna be tricky. But what we've got to do is, if we're gonna back the boys in the good times and enjoy them, we've got to back the boys in the dark times as well when things are tough. It's all part of the journey as a Chelsea fan. But that's my team for tomorrow night. If anyone's got any questions in the chat, please do fire them in. Anything Chelsea related, City related at all, then please do bang those in the chat whilst I'm giving my score predictions to round out this stream. So Chelsea taking on Manchester City at Stamford Bridge tomorrow night. I've got to be honest, I've got no confidence that the boys are going to get anything other than a big L in this game. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 Manchester City win. I think if we score a goal, we've done really well in this fixture. I'm going 2-0 to Manchester City in this game. That seems like a pretty good place to round out the stream, unless anyone's got any last-minute questions. Guys, thank you for tuning in, as always. Really appreciate everyone getting involved in the chat and tuning in, so thanks very much for that. Please make sure you smash the likes on the stream on the way out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We'd really appreciate that. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by as soon as possible, definitely by the end of this season. So every subscriber would really help. So please do subscribe to the channel. I will be back tomorrow, either with a match vlog from the City game or with match reaction straight after the game. And then we've got a Benoit Badiashile special dropping on Friday with a French journalist. So make sure you stay tuned for that one as well. So loads of exciting stuff coming up in the next few days on the channel. But yeah, as I said, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. Smash the likes on the way out of the stream. Subscribe to the channel. Thanks for getting involved. And I'll catch you again tomorrow. And as always, up the Chelsea.